Hello and welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guest on this next interview. As tensions escalate in the Middle East and Iran faces mounting instability, Moscow risks losing not just a political partner, but a crucial military and industrial collaborator. The Kremlin insists the war economy is resilient, yet sanctions and structural weakness are biting deeper, even in regions boosted by defense spending. Joining us today on TVP World to unpack these developments is Vladimir Milov, former advisor to Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good evening, thanks for having me.
So much of the world has been focusing on the development in the Middle East, specifically Iran, but I would like to figure out how does that impact Russia, and if Iran's position weakens further, what is Russia going to lose as an ally?
We have to understand that Vladimir Putin is a very opportunistic animal, so to say, and definitely there are very strong negatives for Russia from this current situation. True, as you said, one of Russia's major allies has been attacked and the leadership has been partially decapitated. But Putin also, he's very skillful at, drawing some opportunistic gains, tactical gains from situations like that. And one of the issues I think he's very pleased about is a total lack of strategic clarity, like what the US hopes to achieve in Iran. There's definitely not a clear plan. There's definitely lack of ability. Nobody really expects US ground invasion to support the airstrikes. We know from the experience of many previous wars that air power alone does not resolve any military objectives that successfully, particularly with a country as large as Iran, with a huge military and security apparatus. We already see headlines like Gulf states for the first time in recent decades actually questioning the effectiveness of the US military protection, which seemed to be the guarantor of stability in the region for years, but now I'm sure Putin sees these pictures of Dubai and Abu Dhabi burning and it makes him happy. There is an opening for a protracted instability in the region which will drive global attention and resources away from supporting Ukraine, as basically happened for the past couple of years with the war in Gaza, which really did diverted a lot of attention, and Putin was happy about it. And obviously I'm not even mentioning oil, because I'm sure when the markets open very soon, we'll see another jump in prices. That might be a very important tactical relief for Putin, because he's running short of money, as you correctly said, and the jump in international oil prices might be just what he needs at the moment. So it's complicated, so to say, and the lack of strategic plan on the US part, I think, is the one issue that makes Putin happy in this situation.
Right, like I mentioned, there's pretty much pros and cons when it comes to the situation in the Middle East for Vladimir Putin. But if we were to break it down a little bit farther, you're mentioning the strategic ambiguity and the fog of war, lack of clarity, benefits Putin. But can you help us understand how that is?
Well, first, if you look at the battlefield itself, what happens with the strikes on Iran, the headlines that you see is just opened Wall Street Journal at the moment. US needs to finish the operation quick before it runs out of munitions. Another issue is Gulf states questioning US air defenses, because clearly they did not work properly, because we saw a lot of stuff, including like American base in Bahrain being hit. I'm sure Vladimir Putin re-watches this video on replay many times. So clearly, as it develops, the US military operation itself has certain downsides, and I'm sure that will be very valuable for Russian military planning to see what the US vulnerabilities are. These headlines about America being short of munitions actually clearly creates a sort of a new incoming factor in the Russia-US global military balance and so on. Plus, again, the protracted instability, we see that Iranian regime is not a very easy thing to topple. This is why 7 previous consecutive presidents of the United States in the past half of a century never launched a direct attack against Iran, despite having many reasons to do so. This is not an easy not an easy nut to crack, which is why Putin, I think he will be thinking about how to make sure that this contract and this emerging chaos continues, so that the resources are being sucked in and the attention is being diverted away from Putin's ongoing aggression against Ukraine.
Right. Speaking of attention, looking at Putin's side of things, Iran being Russia's ally, and when the U.S. attacked Iran, there is strong condemnation coming from Vladimir Putin himself. Do you think that the lack of any materialistic support in any way, shape, or form, instead of just these condemnation, also showcases the lack of resources for Putin to direct his attention?
True, but that was visible already in June, when Israel and the United States have bombed Iran in order to halt its nuclear weapons program. Iran did hope for a massive, including military support from Russia, but got nothing. And this is one of the factors when everybody is saying at the moment that Russia and Iran are allies. This is technically true. But the alliance as such was badly damaged by the lack of help in the hour of need in June last year, when Iran was attacked by Israel and the US. It did reach out, but it did not receive any help, after which basically the relations were strained. So we don't see like any active cooperation at the moment between Russia and Iran. The Shahed drones, which are frequently mentioned, basically Russia is producing them by itself. At the moment, technology was transferred some time ago. So like direct interaction between the two regimes is not negligible, but definitely not something that Putin relies upon today, which means yes, that's true that Iran did hope that Putin would step in and help in the event of a US attack, but it was evident more than half a year ago, in June last year, that Putin is not ready risking that. And he's not only running out of resources, which is very true, but he's also very much valuing his relations with Donald Trump, whom he hopes to still convince to force Ukraine into concessions in the Russian-Ukraine talks, which is why Putin is not coming to help Iran. I'm pretty sure Iranian leadership knows it.
Right. And speaking of Putin and resources dwindling, right now we're looking at Russia still saying that its wartime economy is resilient, but a lot of numbers and statistics show otherwise. Are we seeing the first real signs that these sanctions are indeed degrading industrial capacity rather than just slowing down growth?
Absolutely. This week, we just had a fresh statistics released on January. First time industrial construction in many long months. And production of weapons and ammunition in January plunged by 6%, down 6% year on year, January this year. That's the first time in like 3 years that the weapons and ammunition production have contracted. Manufacturing industries is down. Inflation is the highest since the beginning of the full-scale invasion 4 years ago. Interest rates are also some of the highest in the world, and the central bank cannot guarantee that it will further cut rates because inflation still persists. Budget deficit is exploding, and recently Prime Minister Mishustin, speaking in the state parliament, admitted that they've been discussing for long hours with Putin how to salvage the dire budgetary situation, but found no solution. So yes, economy is cracking down, and that's visibly seen in the Russian official data.
Right, like I said, we're looking at the Russians raising budget deficit, as well as recently we talked about falling energy revenue as well. Is that going to have a long-term macroeconomic impact that's going to affect the trajectory of the war?
Yes, because what happened you spoke about resilience, but this was some sort of a trick of a mind, because what happened in the past 2 years is that Russia has been supporting this massive production of weapons with the funds that were accumulated before the war, or before major sanctions came into effect, like EU oil embargo only came into effect in December 2022. So Russia was basically given an opportunity to still supply Europe with energy for about a year when the full-scale invasion was already raging on. So they accumulated a lot of resources, invested them massively in military complex and import substitution, but the money is running out. So this is why economy is rapidly cooling. It was only running on steroids of this accumulated cash. Now it's over. There is nothing that can basically guarantee recovery. All of the Russia is desperately searching for factors that can support economic activity, but there are none. There is no foreign investment. Tax hikes and inflation are killing the profitability of businesses. Investment is shrinking, and there is no outside help coming. So yes, Russia is finally running out of steam in terms of its economy and war machine. That means it creates a major call for Western countries to put, to increase the sanctions pressure, to put more steam into the sanctions machine. So I just hope that the 20th package of sanctions will be adopted soon, and the pressure will continue.
All right, but the Kremlin does insist this narrative of resilience. My question would be, do you think that this narrative is it more aimed at a domestic audience, be it the everyday people, the elite class, or are they trying to send this message to people externally?
Mostly externally. I would quote the Institute for the Study of War, which has a specific page on its website dedicated to cognitive warfare. A psychological disinformation operation aimed at Western policymakers and public opinion, trying to convince them that yes, Russia is resilient. As far as Russian public opinion is concerned, I mean, you just have to watch what the absolutely non-political bloggers who are, trading cosmetics or consumer goods, what they are saying about the prices, the tax hikes, and the dwindling domestic demand and deteriorating economic situation. The beginning of 2026 was marked by basically crisis, coming into every Russian home. That's the hot topic number one, and everybody's talking about it, and Putin will not be able to hide it beneath propaganda. So that resilience narrative is largely aimed at Western audience, but hopefully it will catch up and realize, because nothing speaks louder than Russian official data about what's going on with the economy, and the data was pretty bad for Putin recently.
All right, and it does seem like these narratives are very quickly losing credibility as well. Thank you so much for your input and insight. I really appreciate it, and thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you, great being with you.
Cheers. And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.